Caleb Thornton hadn't cried in 2 years. Not when he buried his wife. Not when he buried his daughter the same day. But when he opened his door that frozen March evening and saw 7 children huddled together, the oldest girl clutching a baby to her chest, her lips moving in silent prayer, something cracked inside him.
"Please, sir," she whispered. "My father died last night. They're coming to take us, all of us. Please."
Before you continue, subscribe to our channel and follow this story to the end. Comment your city below. I want to see how far our story travels. The knock came 3 times. Hard. Desperate. Caleb set down his coffee and reached for the Winchester by the door. In Wyoming territory, March of 1878, a man didn't answer knocks without iron in his hand. He pulled the door open. 7 children stood on his porch. 7. The oldest couldn't be more than 17. She held a baby wrapped in what looked like a flour sack. Behind her, 6 more faces stared up at him with hollow eyes.
"Please, sir."
The girl's voice didn't waver.
"My father died last night. They're coming to take us, all of us."
Caleb's hand tightened on the rifle. "Who's coming?"
"Mr. Briggs, the banker. Papa owed him money."
She pulled the baby closer.
"He said he'd split us up, send us to different families. I can't let that happen. I won't."
The wind cut across the porch. One of the smaller children, a boy, maybe 4, started to cry. The girl reached back without looking and touched his head. He quieted. "What's your name?" Caleb asked.
"Clara Weston. These are my brothers and sisters."
Caleb looked at them, really looked. Their coats were too thin. The baby's lips had gone blue. A girl about 6 pressed her face into Clara's skirt, shivering hard. "How far'd you walk?"
8 miles, since before dawn."
8 miles, in this cold, with a baby. Caleb stepped aside. "Get inside, all of you." Clara hesitated. "We don't want charity, sir. I can work. I can cook, clean, mend." "Get inside before that baby freezes." She nodded once and herded the children through the door. They moved like a flock of birds, tight together, watching him with suspicious eyes. Caleb closed the door against the wind and leaned the rifle against the wall. "Josiah!" he called toward the back of the house. An older black man appeared from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a cloth. His eyes went wide when he saw the children. "Lord have mercy." "Heat up whatever we got. Soup, bread, anything." "Yes, sir." Josiah moved fast for a man his age. Caleb turned to Clara. She stood in the middle of his front room, still holding the baby, still guarding the others with her body. "Sit," he said, "by the fire." "I'd rather stand, sir." It wasn't a question. Their eyes met. Hers were green, defiant, scared underneath, but she'd rather die than show it. Caleb respected that. "The children need to warm up," he said, softer. "Let them sit." Clara's jaw tightened. Then she turned to the others. "Go on, sit by the fire. Don't touch nothin'." They obeyed instantly. The little ones scrambled toward the warmth. An older boy, maybe 12, helped a younger girl settle onto the floor. The 4-year-old, who'd been crying, pressed his palms toward the flames. Clara remained standing. Caleb pulled a chair closer to the fire and pointed at it. "Sit. The baby needs the heat more than your pride." Something flickered in her eyes. She sat. "What's the baby's name?" Caleb asked. "Grace. She's 3 months." Clara adjusted the flour sack blanket. "Mama died birthing her. Papa tried, but he wasn't never the same after." "And the others?" Clara pointed as she named them. "That's Ellie. She's 6. Won't talk much since Mama passed. Sammy, he's 4. Then there's Thomas, he's 8. Ruth is 10. Matthew's 12.
And the oldest after me is Daniel.
He's 14. 7 children. One girl trying to hold them together. Caleb had seen hard things in his life. Seen men die in gunfights. Seen what fever could do to a town. But this was something else. "Your pa," he said. "How'd he pass?"
Consumption.
Clara's voice went flat.
Been sick for months. Couldn't work. That's when the debts piled up. Mr. Briggs, he kept coming around. Said he was being patient. Said he was being Christian about it.
Her hands tightened on Grace.
Last night, Papa started coughing blood. By morning, he was gone.
And Briggs?
He came before we could even bury him proper. Said he was sorry for our loss. Said the debt didn't die with Papa. Said he knew families who'd take us. Good Christian families. But not together.
Her voice cracked just slightly.
He wanted to take Grace first. Said a baby was easier to place.
Caleb felt something cold settle in his chest. Warren Briggs. He knew the man. Owned half the town. Smiled like a snake and prayed loud every Sunday. "What'd you do?" "I told him to get out of our house. He said it wasn't our house no more. Said he'd be back with the sheriff." Clara lifted her chin. "So I took the children and left before dawn. I heard you lived out here alone. Heard you didn't much like town folk." "You heard right."
"I figured maybe you'd let us stay in your barn, just till I could figure something out."
"Barns for horses." Clara's face went pale.
"Please, sir, I ain't asking for myself. But Gracie, she's so small. And Ellie, she's been through so much. If you could just—"
"I said the barn's for horses." Caleb cut her off. "House has 3 spare rooms. You'll stay there." Clara blinked.
"What?"
"You heard me."
"But why? You don't know us. We ain't nothing to you."
Caleb looked at the children by the fire. Sammy had curled up against Ruth, eyes already closing. Thomas was trying to stay awake, watching Caleb with wary attention. Matthew sat rigid, fists clenched, ready to fight if needed. Daniel stared at the floor, shame and anger warring on his young face. Ellie hadn't moved, hadn't spoken, just pressed closer to Ruth's side. "Because I got rooms sitting empty," Caleb said finally. "And you got children freezing. Ain't complicated." Josiah appeared with a pot of soup and a stack of bowls. He started serving without a word. The children looked at Clara. She nodded. Only then did they eat. "Slowly," Clara warned. "Don't make yourselves sick." Caleb watched her. 17 years old, and she was more mother than most women twice her age. "How long since you all ate?" he asked. "Yesterday morning. We had some bread left." "And before that?" Clara didn't answer. Caleb turned to Josiah. "Make up the rooms. Fresh bedding. Get the stove going in each one." "Yes, sir." Josiah headed down the hall. Clara stood abruptly, shifting Grace to one arm. "I need to help. Please." "I can't just sit here and—" "You can. You will." Caleb's voice was firm, but not harsh. "You've been carrying them for months, ain't you? Keeping them fed, keeping them together. You can rest now." Clara's eyes filled with tears. She blinked them back fiercely. "I ain't weak." "Never said you were." "We'll leave soon as the weather clears. Soon as I find work somewhere. We won't be a burden." "Storm's coming. Big one. You'll stay till it passes."
"Mr.
Thornton. Caleb Thornton."
Mr. Thornton."
Clara took a breath.
"Why are you doing this? Really?"
Caleb was quiet for a long moment. He looked at the fire, at the flames eating at the logs. "Had a daughter once," he said. "Name was Emma. She was 4 when she passed. Same as your Sammy there." Clara went still. Fever took her. Took my wife, too, same week. Caleb's voice was steady, but something underneath it wasn't. That was 2 years ago. Been alone since.
I'm sorry.
Don't be. He met her eyes. Point is, I know what it's like to lose everything. And I know what it's like when nobody helps. He paused. I ain't gonna be that man. The one who turns away. Clara stared at him for a long moment. Then she nodded, just once.
Thank you, Mr. Thornton.
Don't thank me yet. You ain't met Wyoming winter proper. A small smile flickered across her face. First one he'd seen.
I reckon we can handle it.
The children slept hard that night. Caleb gave up his bedroom for Clara and the 3 youngest, Ellie, Sammy, and Grace. The older boys took the second spare room. Ruth got the small room off the kitchen that Josiah usually used. Josiah said he'd sleep in the barn. Caleb didn't argue. Caleb himself sat by the fire, rifle across his knees. He didn't expect trouble tonight, but he didn't not expect it either. Warren Briggs wasn't a man who gave up easy. Around midnight, Caleb heard footsteps. Soft, careful. He turned. Clara stood in the hallway, Grace asleep in her arms.
She won't settle in the bed, Clara whispered. Think she's used to being held while she sleeps.
Sit. Caleb gestured to the chair across from him. Clara hesitated, then sat. She rocked Grace gently, humming something low and sweet. That song, Caleb said. What is it?
Mama used to sing it. Don't know where she learned it. I've been singing it to Grace since she was born.
Clara looked at him.
Does it bother you? I can stop.
No, it's... Caleb stopped. My wife used to hum, when she was working. Didn't even know she was doing it half the time. What was her name? Sarah.
Pretty name.
She was a pretty woman. Caleb stared at the fire. Stubborn as a mule, though. Told her Wyoming wasn't no place for a lady. She said she'd decide what kind of place it was. Clara almost smiled. Sounds like someone I'd have liked. She'd have liked you too. The words came out before Caleb could stop them. They sat in silence for a while. The fire crackled. Grace made small sounds in her sleep.
Mr. Thornton?
Yeah?
What happened to your face?
Caleb's hand went to the scar that ran from his temple to his jaw. Most people didn't ask. Most people were too polite. Or too scared. I was a Texas Ranger before I came here. Clara's eyes widened slightly.
A ranger?
For 8 years. Did things I ain't proud of. Saw things I can't forget. He touched the scar. This was from a knife fight in Amarillo. Man was trying to kill a woman. I stopped him. That don't sound like something to be ashamed of. It ain't, but other things are. Caleb's jaw tightened. I quit the Rangers after I shot a boy. He was 15. Had a gun pointed at my partner. I didn't have a choice. But that don't mean I don't see his face every time I close my eyes. Clara was quiet. Then she said, You did what you had to protect someone. Maybe. Don't make it easier. No, I reckon it don't. She shifted Grace in her arms. But you're still here. Still trying to be good. That counts for something. Caleb looked at her. Really looked. 17 years old, but her eyes were older. Life had aged her in ways that couldn't be undone. You should sleep, he said. Tomorrow's going to be hard. Why? What happens tomorrow? Briggs will come. Once he figures out where you went, He'll come. Clara's face went pale. What will you do? I'll handle it.
Mr.
Thornton.
I said, I'll handle it. Caleb's voice was hard.
Then softer. You've got enough to worry about. Let me worry about Briggs. Clara studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded and stood. Good night, Mr. Thornton. Good night, Miss Weston. She disappeared down the hallway. Caleb listened to her footsteps fade, then turned back to the fire. Warren Briggs would come. That was certain. The question was what Caleb would do when he did. 2 years ago, he'd have known the answer without thinking. But that was before Sarah, before Emma, before he'd buried everything that made him who he was. Now he wasn't sure what kind of man he was anymore. He supposed he'd find out soon enough.
Morning came gray and cold. The snow had started overnight, thick flakes falling steady and silent. Caleb was already up, checking the livestock, when Clara appeared on the porch. You shouldn't be out here, he said. Cold's dangerous. I needed to talk to you, before the others wake up. Caleb stopped, waited. I've been thinking, Clara said, about what you said last night, about Briggs coming. And? I don't want you getting hurt on account of us. You've been kind, kinder than anyone's been in a long time. But if Briggs brings the sheriff, if he's got the law on his side. Law ain't always right. Maybe not, but it's still the law. Caleb walked toward her, stopped at the bottom of the porch steps. You know what Briggs wants? Really wants? The debt money. Papa owed him near $300. That ain't it. Caleb shook his head. I've known men like Briggs my whole life. Money's just power to them. And power over 7 orphaned children? That's something he can use. He'll place you with families who owe him. Families who'll pay him back in other ways. Labor, loyalty, votes when election time comes. Clara's face went white. He wouldn't. He would, and he will, unless someone stops him. Why would you do that? Why would you risk anything for us? Caleb was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Because I spent 2 years hiding out here, telling myself I was done with the world, done with caring about anything or anyone. And maybe I was. But then you showed up on my porch with 7 children, and I realized something. What? That a man who won't stand for what's right ain't really a man at all. He's just breathing. Clara stared at him. Her eyes were wet, but she didn't cry. Wouldn't let herself. You're a good man, Mr. Thornton. I'm trying to be. The door behind Clara opened. Sammy peeked out, rubbing his eyes. Sissy? I'm hungry. Clara wiped her eyes quickly and turned to him. I know, sweetheart. Let's go make breakfast, okay? She led him inside, but at the door, she paused and looked back at Caleb. Thank you, she said, for everything. Caleb nodded, but didn't answer. He watched her go, then turned back to the falling snow. The storm was building. By nightfall, it would be bad. Maybe bad enough to keep Briggs away for a few days. But it wouldn't keep him away forever. Caleb had learned a long time ago that trouble didn't disappear just because you wanted it to. You had to face it, fight it, beat it down until it stopped getting back up. He'd done it before. He could do it again. He just hoped he was still the man he used to be. Breakfast was chaos. Beautiful, loud, chaotic chaos. Caleb stood in the corner of his kitchen, watching 7 children devour eggs and biscuits like they hadn't eaten in weeks, which, he realized, they probably hadn't. Not properly. Clara moved between them like a general commanding troops. Sammy, use your fork. Ruth, share with Ellie. Matthew, slow down, you'll choke. Daniel, sit down and eat.
Daniel, the 14-year-old, hadn't touched his plate. He stood by the window, arms crossed, glaring out at the snow. "I ain't hungry," he muttered. "You'll eat anyway." "You ain't Mama." The words hit Clara like a slap. She went very still. "No," she said quietly, "I ain't. But Mama's gone. So you got me, and I'm telling you to eat." Daniel's jaw clenched. For a moment, Caleb thought the boy might argue. But then he saw Clara's face, the exhaustion, the pain, the desperate strength, and something in him crumbled. He sat. He ate.
Clara exhaled slowly and went back to serving the younger ones. Josiah appeared at Caleb's side.
"That girl's something else," he said quietly. "Yeah, she is. Briggs ain't gonna let this go. You know that." "I know. What's your play?" Caleb watched Clara wipe Sammy's face, heard her laugh at something Ruth said, saw her check on Grace in the makeshift cradle they'd set up by the stove. "I don't know yet," he admitted, "but I ain't letting him take those children." Josiah nodded slowly. "Then I reckon we got a fight coming." "Reckon we do." The storm built all day. By noon, you couldn't see the barn from the house. By evening, the wind was screaming like something alive. The children huddled by the fire. Ruth told stories to keep the little ones calm. Matthew and Daniel played cards, though Daniel kept glancing at the windows like he expected something to come crashing through. Clara sat with Grace, feeding her from a bottle Josiah had rigged up.
The baby drank greedily, her tiny hands waving.
"She's getting stronger," Josiah said, watching. "Good thing, too. She was half-starved when you got here." "I tried," Clara said. "I tried to keep her fed, but there wasn't enough. Never enough." "Ain't your fault." "Then whose is it?" Clara's voice cracked. "I was supposed to take care of them. That's what Mama said. Before she died, she made me promise. Take care of them, Clara, no matter what. And I tried. I tried so hard. But Papa got sick, and the money ran out, and—" She stopped, took a breath. "I'm sorry," she said. I don't cry. Can't afford to." Josiah put a hand on her shoulder. "Crying ain't weakness, child. It's just letting out what's too heavy to carry." Clara looked up at him. "You sound like my mama." "Smart woman, your mama." Clara almost smiled. "Yeah, she was." Across the room, Caleb watched them. Watched Clara pull herself together, piece by piece, until the mask was back in place. 17 years old. She shouldn't have to be this strong. Shouldn't have to carry this weight. But life didn't care about should and shouldn't. Life just was. Caleb had learned that lesson the hard way. He'd thought, after Sarah and Emma died, that he was done. Done with caring, with hoping, with living in any real sense. He'd built walls around himself, thick and high, and he'd stayed behind them for 2 years. But now there was a crack in those walls. A crack shaped like a girl with green eyes and 7 children who needed someone to fight for them. Caleb didn't know if he was ready to be that someone, but he was starting to think he didn't have a choice. That night, after the children were asleep, Caleb found Clara on the porch. She was staring out at the storm, arms wrapped around herself. "You'll freeze," he said. "Don't care." He stood beside her, didn't touch her, just stood. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "Mama, Papa, everything we lost." Clara's voice was hollow. "I keep wondering if I could have done something different. If maybe Papa wouldn't have gotten so bad, if I'd taken better care of him. If I'd made him see a doctor sooner. If I'd—" "Stop." She looked at him. You didn't cause any of this, Caleb said. Your mama dying, your papa getting sick, Briggs being the kind of man he is, none of that's on you.
Then why does it feel like it is?
Because that's what grief does. Makes you think everything's your fault. Makes you replay every moment, looking for the thing you could have changed. Caleb's voice was rough. I did it for months after Sarah and Emma.
Told myself if I'd been there, they wouldn't have died. If I'd come home sooner, if I'd seen the signs, if I'd done something different.
Did it help? The blaming? No, just made the hole inside me bigger. Clara was quiet for a long moment. Then she said,
How do you make it stop?
You don't. Not completely. But you learn to live with it. Learn to carry it instead of letting it carry you. He paused. And you find something worth living for.
I got the children.
That's a start. Clara turned to face him. In the dim light, with snow swirling around them, she looked young, vulnerable, nothing like the fierce protector he'd seen since she arrived.
Mr. Thornton?
Yeah?
Thank you for not making me feel weak.
You ain't weak, Clara. You're the strongest person I've met in a long time. She stared at him. Something passed between them, understanding maybe, recognition. Then she looked away.
We should go inside. Storm's getting worse.
Yeah, we should. But neither of them moved. Not yet. They stood there, side by side, watching the snow fall and the wind howl, while somewhere inside the house, 7 children slept, safe and warm for the first time in months. It wouldn't last, Caleb knew. Briggs would come. The town would turn against them. The fight wasn't over. It was just beginning. But for now, in this moment, they were safe. And that was enough. The storm lasted 3 days. 3 days of wind screaming against the walls. 3 days of snow piling higher than the windows. 3 days of 7 children trapped inside with a man who'd forgotten how to live around people. Caleb learned their rhythms fast. Sammy woke first, always hungry, always asking questions. Why's the sky white? Why's the fire crackle? Why don't you smile, Mr. Caleb? That last one hit harder than it should have. Ellie didn't speak at all. She followed Clara everywhere, clutching her sister's skirt, watching with eyes too old for 6 years. Caleb recognized that look. He'd seen it in the mirror after Sarah died. Ruth mothered everyone, even Clara. She braided Ellie's hair each morning, told stories to Sammy, helped Josiah in the kitchen without being asked. 10 years old and already carrying weight no child should carry. Thomas was the watcher. 8 years old, always observing, always calculating. He'd survive by being invisible, Caleb figured, by seeing trouble before it saw him. Matthew was the fighter. 12, angry, fists always clenched. He didn't trust Caleb, made that clear every chance he got. And Daniel, 14, caught between boy and man, drowning in both. He blamed himself for their father's death. Caleb could see it in every line of the boy's body. On the second day of the storm, Matthew cornered Caleb in the barn. I know what you're doing, the boy said. Caleb kept brushing his horse. And what's that? Being nice, acting like you care. You want something from Clara. Caleb stopped, turned. Matthew's fists were raised, ready to fight a man twice his size. You think that? Caleb asked. I know how men are. Seen plenty of them look at Clara. Think she's pretty. Think she's easy because Papa was a drunk and Mama's dead. Lower your fists. Make me. Caleb studied the boy, saw the fear underneath the anger, the desperation to protect his family the only way he knew how. Your sister's safe here, Caleb said quietly. So are you. So are all of them. Why should I believe you? Because I got nothing to gain by lying. Caleb turned back to the horse. And because if I wanted to hurt any of you, I'd have done it already. Matthew's fists stayed up for another moment. Then, slowly, they dropped. I'm watching you, the boy said. Good. A man should protect his family. Matthew blinked. Whatever he'd expected Caleb to say, it wasn't that. He left without another word. Clara found Caleb an hour later, still in the barn. Matthew told me what happened. He's got guts, standing up to a man my size. He's been doing it since he was 8. First time Papa came home drunk and raised his hand to Mama, Matthew stepped between them. Clara's voice was tired. Got a black eye for his trouble, but Papa never hit Mama again. Your father hit your mother? Only that once. Matthew made sure of it. Clara leaned against the stall door. Don't judge him too harsh, Mr. Thornton. Matthew, I mean. He's been fighting so long, he don't know how to stop. I ain't judging. I was the same at his age. Clara looked at him. What happened to make you that way? Caleb was quiet for a long moment. The horse snorted softly, breath fogging in the cold air. My father drank, he said finally. Beat my mother regular. Beat me when I got in the way. One day, I got big enough to hit back. He paused. I was 12. Broke his jaw. He never touched us again. What happened to him? Left. Never saw him after that. Caleb's voice was flat. Mama died 2 years later, worn out from years of fear. I joined the Rangers at 16, been fighting ever since. Clara stepped closer. You ever get tired of it? The fighting? Every day. Then why keep doing it? Caleb looked at her. Really looked. The firelight from the house caught her face through the barn door, made her eyes glow. Because some things are worth fighting for. Clara held his gaze. Something shifted between them, something neither was ready to name. I should check on Grace, she said softly. Yeah, you should. She left. Caleb stayed in the barn for another hour, trying to figure out why his heart was beating so fast. The storm broke on the third morning. Caleb woke to silence so profound it felt like deafness. He went to the window. The snow had stopped. The sky was clear blue, cold as iron. Josiah was already up, starting breakfast. They'll come today, Josiah said without looking up. I know. You got a plan? Working on it. Josiah snorted. That ain't reassuring. Wasn't meant to be. Clara appeared with Grace in her arms. She looked rested for the first time since she'd arrived. The color had returned to her cheeks. Grace was making happy sounds, waving her tiny fists. Storm's over, Clara said. Yeah. Mr. Briggs will come. Probably. Clara's jaw tightened. What do we do? You don't do nothing. You stay inside with the children. I'll handle Briggs. Mr. Thornton. Caleb. She stopped. What? Call me Caleb. Mr. Thornton was my father, and I didn't much like him. A small smile crossed Clara's face. All right. Caleb. She tested the name. What's your plan? Briggs wants money. I'll pay the debt. Clara's face went pale. I can't let you do that. $300. That's more than most men make in a year. I got it. But I got it. Caleb's voice was firm. Sold a lot of cattle last fall. Money's just sitting in the bank. Might as well use it for something that matters. Clara stared at him. Her eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. Why? She whispered. Why would you do this for us? Caleb didn't answer right away. He looked at Grace, at her tiny, perfect face. At Clara, so young and so tired and so strong. Because I got a chance to do something right, he said finally. And I ain't gonna waste it. Clara opened her mouth to respond, but the sound of hooves stopped her. Caleb moved to the window. 3 riders coming up the lane. Warren Briggs in front, wearing his fancy coat. The sheriff beside him, and behind them, Preacher Elijah Stone. "Get the children to the back rooms," Caleb said. "Keep them quiet." Clara didn't argue. She disappeared down the hall, calling softly for Ruth. Caleb grabbed his rifle and stepped onto the porch. Briggs dismounted first, smile already fixed in place. "Morning, Caleb. Cold one, ain't it?" "What do you want, Warren?" Now.
No need for hostility." Briggs spread his hands. "I'm just here to collect what's owed. You harboring those Weston children? They're under my roof. That makes them my concern."
Sheriff Tom Harlan shifted in his saddle. He was a decent man, Caleb knew, but he was weak, easily pressured. Briggs owned him like he owned half the town. "Caleb," the sheriff said, "the law's clear. Daniel Weston owed Mr. Briggs money. That debt passes to his estate. Those children are his estate. Children ain't property, Tom. The law, I'll pay the debt." Silence. Briggs' smile flickered. "I'm sorry? I said I'll pay it. $300, right? I'll have it for you by end of week." Briggs recovered quickly. "Well now, that's very generous, Caleb. But I'm afraid it ain't just about the money. What else is it about? Those children need proper Christian homes, stable families. A single man living alone, well, it ain't appropriate." Caleb's grip tightened on the rifle.
"I got Josiah here, and Clara's of age. She can make her own choices."
"She's 17, a child herself." Preacher Stone spoke for the first time, his voice oily with false concern. "These little ones need guidance, structure. The church has identified several families willing to take them in." "Split them up, you mean?" "If necessary, for their own good." "Their own good." Caleb's voice went cold. "You want to rip 7 children apart, send them to strangers, and you call it their own good?" "Now, Caleb, get off my land." Briggs' smile vanished. "Excuse me?" "You heard me. Get off my land. You ain't taking those children. Not today. Not ever." Sheriff Harlan's hand moved toward his gun. "Caleb, don't make this harder than it needs to be." "You gonna shoot me, Tom? For protecting orphans?" The sheriff hesitated. That was all Caleb needed to see. "Right away," Caleb said. "Tell the town whatever you want,
But know this. Anyone who comes for those children comes through me first." Briggs's face had gone red. "You're making a mistake, Thornton. A big one. Wouldn't be my first. The law is on my side. Maybe, but right is on mine." They stared at each other. 2 men who'd never liked each other, finally showing their true faces. Briggs turned away first. "This ain't over," he said, mounting his horse. "Not by a long shot." "I'm counting on it." They rode away. Caleb watched until they disappeared over the hill, then lowered his rifle. Josiah appeared beside him. "That went well." "Could have gone worse." "Could have gone better, too." Josiah shook his head. "Briggs won't stop. You know that." "I know." "So what now?" Caleb looked back at the house. Through the window, he could see Clara in the hallway, the children gathered around her. Sammy was crying. Ruth was trying to calm him. Matthew stood with fists clenched, ready to fight. "Now we prepare," Caleb said, "because this war's just getting started." The next few days passed in tense waiting. Caleb taught Daniel and Matthew to shoot, standing them in the yard with old cans lined up on the fence. "Squeeze, don't pull," he told Daniel, "and breathe out before you fire." Daniel's shot went wide. He cursed under his breath. "Again." "What's the point? I ain't gonna be any good." "You will be.
Takes practice.
Why are you teaching us this? Matthew asked from behind them. You think Briggs is going to come with guns?
I think a man should know how to defend his family, whatever comes. Daniel took aim again. This time, the can flew off the fence. Good, Caleb said. Again. Inside the house, Clara watched them through the window. Josiah stood beside her, drying dishes.
He's different, Clara said.
Who, Caleb?
Yeah, I don't know, different than I expected.
Josiah chuckled. Let me guess. You heard he was a hermit. Mean. Dangerous.
Something like that.
He was.
For 2 years after Sarah and Emma died, he barely spoke. Barely ate. I thought he might just fade away. Josiah set down the dish. Then you showed up. Clara turned to look at him.
What do you mean?
I mean, he's coming back to life. I can see it. The way he talks to your brothers. The way he looks at those little ones. Josiah paused. The way he looks at you. Clara's cheeks flushed.
He doesn't. We're not.
I didn't say you were. I said he looks at you. And you look back.
Josiah.
I'm an old man, Miss Clara. I've seen love bloom in stranger places than this. He picked up another dish. Just saying what I see. Clara didn't respond, but she kept watching Caleb through the window, long after the shooting lesson ended. That evening, after the children were asleep, Clara found Caleb on the porch again. It was becoming their place, she realized, the spot where they could talk without little ears listening.
Thank you, she said, for teaching them.
They need to know. They need a lot of things, more than I can give them. Caleb looked at her. You've given them everything.
It ain't enough. Grace needs medicine. Ellie needs someone who can reach her, make her talk again. Sammy needs a father. They all do.
Clara's voice cracked.
I'm 17 years old, Caleb. I don't know how to be a mother to 6 children.
You're already doing it.
Barely, and badly.
Hey, Caleb's voice was sharp. Look at me. She did. His eyes were intense in the moonlight. I've seen men twice your age crumble under half the weight you carry, he said. I've seen soldiers run from battles easier than the one you're fighting. You ain't barely doing nothing. You're surviving. You're keeping them alive. You're keeping them together. That ain't nothing, Clara. That's everything. Clara's tears finally fell. She'd been holding them back for so long, she'd forgotten what it felt like to let go.
I'm so tired, she whispered. I'm so tired of being strong.
Then stop. She looked at him, confused. Stop being strong, just for tonight. Caleb's voice was soft. You don't gotta hold everything up by yourself. Not anymore.
What do you mean?
I mean, I'm here. Josiah's here. You got people now. Let us carry some of it. Clara stared at him. No one had ever said that to her before. Not even her mother. Not even her father in the good times.
Why? She asked. Why do you care so much?
Caleb was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. Because when I look at you, I see someone worth saving. And when I look at those children, I see a reason to live. He paused. I ain't had that in a long time. Clara reached out. Her fingers brushed his hand. Neither of them pulled away.
Caleb.
Don't. His voice was strained. Don't say nothing you don't mean.
I don't say nothing I don't mean.
She stepped closer.
Ever.
They stood there, hands touching, hearts racing. The world narrowed to this porch, this moment, this impossible thing growing between them. Then, from inside, Grace started crying. Clara pulled back. Yeah, go. She went. Caleb stayed on the porch, hands still warm where she'd touched him. What the hell was he doing? She was 17, half his age, vulnerable, dependent on him. Every rule of honor said he should keep his distance. But his heart didn't care about rules, and neither, he was starting to suspect, did hers. Sunday came. Clara dressed the children in their cleanest clothes and announced they were going to church. "That ain't wise," Caleb said. "Maybe not, but we ain't gonna hide. We ain't done nothing wrong." "The town don't see it that way." "Then the town can go to hell." Clara's jaw was set. "I ain't teaching these children to be ashamed of who they are. We're going to church. You can come or not." Caleb sighed. "Josiah, hitch the wagon." They rode into town together, all 9 of them packed into the wagon. The children were silent, nervous. Even Sammy didn't ask questions. The white church stood at the edge of town, its steeple pointing at a gray sky. Families gathered outside, talking and laughing. The laughter stopped when they saw the wagon. Caleb helped Clara down first, then the children. He could feel every eye on them. "Heads up," he murmured to the children. "Don't look down. Don't look away. You got nothing to be ashamed of." They walked toward the church. The crowd parted like water around a stone. Inside, the whispers started immediately. "Heard she's living with him. Unmarried, alone with those children. Her father was a drunk, you know. Apple don't fall far." Clara's face was pale, but she walked with her head high. She led the children to a pew near the back. Caleb and Josiah flanked them. Preacher Stone took the pulpit, his eyes finding Clara immediately. "Brothers and sisters," he began, "let us speak today about sin, about the wages of wickedness, about the corruption that creeps into our community when we turn a blind eye to immorality." Caleb's jaw tightened. "There are those who would test our values," the preacher continued, "who would flout the laws of God and man, hiding behind false charity. We must be vigilant. We must protect our families, our children, from those who would lead them astray." Clara's hands trembled in her lap. Ruth reached over and took one. Matthew's fists clenched. "I say to you today," Stone's voice rose, "that we cannot allow the sins of the father to corrupt another generation. We must intervene. We must save these poor lost souls from those who would use them for their own—" "That's enough." Every head turned. Caleb stood, his voice cutting through the church like a knife. "Mr. Thornton," Stone sputtered, "you will sit down." "I'll stand, thanks." Caleb stepped into the aisle. "You want to preach about sin, preacher? Let's talk about the sin of letting children starve while you eat your Sunday roast. Let's talk about the sin of ripping families apart because a man can't pay his debts. Let's talk about the sin of calling yourself Christian while you throw stones at orphans." The congregation gasped. Warren Briggs stood from his pew. "Now see here, Thornton." "Sit down, Warren. I ain't done." Caleb's eyes swept the room. "I know what you all are thinking. I know what you're whispering. But I'm going to tell you something, and you're going to listen. Those children ain't sinners. Their father's debts ain't their shame. And Clara Weston is braver, stronger, and more righteous than anyone in this room." "You're out of line," Stone began. "Maybe, but I'm also right." Caleb pointed at Briggs. "That man wants to split those children up, send them to strangers, break the only family they got left. And you all are going to let him because you're scared, because he's got money and power and you don't want to get on his bad side." Silence. Deafening silence. "Well, I ain't scared," Caleb's voice dropped low. "And I ain't going to stand by while he destroys 7 innocent lives. So here's what's going to happen. Those children are staying with me. Clara's staying with me. And anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me personally. He stared around the church. Nobody met his eyes. That's what I thought. Caleb walked back to the pew, took Clara's hand, and helped her to her feet. "We're leaving," he said. They walked out of the church together. The children followed. Josiah brought up the rear. Outside, Clara stopped. Her whole body was shaking.
Caleb.
"Not here. We'll talk at home." They climbed into the wagon and rode away from the church, from the town, from the judgment and the whispers. Halfway home, Clara started to laugh. Caleb stared at her. "You all right?"
No.
She laughed harder.
No, I ain't all right.
You just told off the whole town. You called out Warren Briggs in public. You probably made enemies of everyone we know.
Probably.
And I ain't never seen anything braver in my life. Caleb didn't know what to say to that, so he said nothing. But when Clara reached over and took his hand, he didn't pull away, and neither did she. That night, after everyone was asleep, Caleb sat alone by the fire. The rifle lay across his knees. His mind kept replaying the scene in church. The faces, the whispers, the look in Briggs's eyes. He'd made a stand, a public one. There was no going back now. The door creaked. Clara appeared, wrapped in a blanket.
Can't sleep,
she said. Me neither. She sat in the chair across from him. For a long moment, neither spoke.
What happens now?
Clara finally asked. I don't know. Briggs won't let this go. Probably get worse before it gets better.
I'm not scared.
You should be.
Maybe.
Clara pulled the blanket tighter.
But I'm tired of being scared. I've been scared my whole life. Scared of Papa when he was drinking, scared of Mama dying, scared of losing the children. Fear ain't kept me safe. It's just kept me small. Caleb looked at her. Really looked. She wasn't a child. He'd known that from the first moment he saw her. But now, in the firelight, with that fierce determination in her eyes, he saw something else. A woman. Strong and broken and beautiful. Clara.
Yeah?
Whatever happens, whatever Briggs does, whatever the town does, I ain't gonna let them take you. Any of you.
I know.
I need you to believe that.
I do.
She held his gaze.
I believe you.
Something passed between them, something deeper than words.
I should go to bed,
Clara whispered. Yeah, you should. She stood, paused. Then, before Caleb could react, she bent down and pressed her lips to his cheek.
Good night, Caleb.
She was gone before he could respond. Caleb sat there for a long time, hand pressed to his cheek, heart pounding. He was in trouble. Big trouble. And for the first time in 2 years, he didn't care. 3 days after the church incident, the first threat arrived. Caleb found the note nailed to his fence post at dawn. He read it once, then burned it in the stove before Clara could see. What was that? She asked from the doorway. Nothing important.
Caleb.
He turned. She stood with Grace on her hip, eyes sharp. Don't lie to me. What was it? He sighed. A warning. From Briggs, probably. Says we got till end of week to hand over the children, or there'll be consequences. Clara's face went pale, but her voice stayed steady. What kind of consequences? Didn't say. Men like Briggs don't put specifics in writing.
So what do we do?
We wait. We watch. And we don't let the children out of our sight. That afternoon, 2 of Caleb's cattle turned up dead. Throats cut clean, no tracks in the snow. Josiah found them first, called Caleb out to see. Professional job, Josiah said quietly. Wasn't wolves. Wasn't weather. Caleb stared at the dead animals. $200 lying in the snow. He's trying to break me. Is it working? No. Caleb's jaw tightened. But he's going to wish he'd tried harder. That night, Caleb doubled the watch. He took first shift himself, rifle across his knees, eyes on the darkness. Around midnight, Clara appeared with coffee. You should be asleep, he said. So should you. She sat beside him on the porch. Their shoulders touched. Neither moved away. I'm scared, Clara admitted. Not for me, for them. I know. If something happens to those children because of me, nothing's going to happen. You can't promise that. No, but I can promise I'll die before I let anyone hurt them. Clara turned to look at him. In the moonlight, her eyes were luminous. Why? She whispered.
Why would you die for children that ain't yours? Caleb was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. Because I couldn't save my own. Couldn't save Sarah. Couldn't save Emma. He paused. Maybe if I save yours, it'll mean something. Maybe it'll make up for. It won't. He looked at her, startled. Saving us won't bring them back, Clara said gently. Won't erase your guilt. That ain't how grief works. Then what will? Nothing. You just learn to carry it. She reached out, touched his hand. But you don't have to carry it alone. Caleb's throat tightened. He turned his hand over, laced his fingers with hers. Clara, I know, I'm too young. You're too old. It ain't proper. The town already thinks the worst. She squeezed his hand. I don't care. You should. Maybe. But I stopped doing what I should a long time ago. She met his eyes. I do what's right, and this feels right. Caleb wanted to argue, wanted to push her away, for her own good, but he couldn't. God help him, he couldn't. We can't, he said. Not while you're living under my roof, not while you're depending on me. It ain't honorable? Clara almost smiled. Since when do you care about what's honorable? Since I met you. That stopped her. She stared at him, lips parted. I want to be worthy of you, Caleb said quietly. That means doing things right. That means waiting until you ain't depending on me for survival. Until you can choose me because you want to, not because you got no other option. Clara's eyes filled with tears. You're a fool, Caleb Thornton. Probably. A noble, stubborn, impossible fool. Definitely. She laughed, soft and broken. Then she leaned her head against his shoulder. Fine. We'll wait. But know this. When all this is over, when Briggs is dealt with and the children are safe, I'm choosing you. And nothing you say is going to change that. Caleb pressed his lips to her hair. I'm counting on it. They sat together until dawn, watching the darkness for enemies that never came. But they were coming. Caleb could feel it. The second attack came 4 days later. Caleb was in the barn, repairing tack, when he heard Ruth scream. He ran. Faster than he'd run in years, burst through the barn doors and saw 3 men on horseback in the yard. One of them had Sammy by the collar, lifting the boy off the ground. Let him go! Clara stood on the porch, Grace in one arm, a kitchen knife in the other hand. The man laughed. Or what, sweetheart? You gonna cut me? Put him down. Caleb's voice was ice. The men turned, saw the rifle aimed at the one holding Sammy. Thornton, the man grinned. Caleb recognized him. Bill Carver, one of Briggs's hired hands. We was just delivering a message. Message received. Now put the boy down. Mr. Briggs wants those children. Says you got 3 days to turn them over, or things get real unpleasant. Unpleasant for who? Carver's grin widened. That pretty girl on the porch looks awful fragile. Shame if something happened to her.
Caleb's finger tightened on the trigger. You threaten her again, I'll put a hole in your skull. Big talk for one man against three. You want to test me? For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Carver dropped Sammy. The boy hit the ground hard, scrambled up, and ran to Clara. 3 days, Thornton, then we come back. And next time, we ain't leaving empty-handed. They rode away. Caleb watched until they disappeared, then lowered the rifle. His hands were shaking. Clara ran to him. Are you all right? I'm fine. You're shaking. I said I'm fine. He wasn't fine. He was terrified. Not for himself. For them. For Clara and the children and the life he was starting to believe in. That night, he gathered everyone in the main room. We need to talk, he said. All of us. The children sat in a cluster, Clara and Josiah flanking them.
7 small faces looked up at Caleb with varying degrees of fear and trust. You all know what's happening, Caleb said. Briggs wants to take you, split you up, send you to different families.
Ellie whimpered. Ruth pulled her closer. I ain't gonna let that happen, Caleb continued. But I need you to understand something. The next few days are gonna be dangerous. I need you all to listen to me and Clara. Do exactly what we say. No questions, no arguments. What if they come back? Daniel asked. The men. Then we fight. We're just kids. You're a family. That makes you stronger than you know. Matthew leaned forward. What's the plan? Caleb looked at Josiah. The older man nodded. Tomorrow, I'm riding into town, Caleb said. I'm going to settle this with Briggs, one way or another. How? Clara's voice was sharp. He's got the law on his side. The sheriff, the preacher, half the town. Not everyone, Caleb paused. There's folks who owe me favors.
Folks who don't like Briggs any more than I do. I'm going to call in those debts.
And if it doesn't work?
Caleb met her eyes. Then we leave. All of us. Head west. Start over somewhere Briggs can't reach us.
Clara stared at him. You'd leave your ranch? Everything you built? I'd leave anything to keep you safe. The room went silent. The children looked between Caleb and Clara, sensing something shifting, something bigger than the threat outside. You mean that? Clara whispered. Every word. She stood, crossed to him, took his hands in front of everyone. Then I'm going with you. Tomorrow. To town. Clara, don't argue. You need someone watching your back. I got Josiah. Now you got me too. Her grip tightened. We're in this together, Caleb. From now on. He wanted to refuse. Wanted to keep her safe at the ranch, away from Briggs and his men. But the look in her eyes told him she wouldn't back down. All right, he said. Together.
They rode into town at noon the next day. Clara sat straight-backed beside Caleb on the wagon seat. Josiah followed on horseback, rifle visible. The streets were quiet. Too quiet. People watched from windows, from doorways. Nobody came out to greet them. Caleb stopped the wagon in front of the bank. Briggs's office was on the second floor. The man himself stood at the window, watching. Wait here, Caleb told Clara. Like hell. They went in together. Briggs met them at the top of the stairs, smile firmly in place. Caleb, Miss Weston, what a pleasant surprise. Cut the act, Warren. We both know why I'm here. I'm sure I don't know what you mean. Your men threatened a child yesterday. Put their hands on a 4-year-old boy. Briggs's smile didn't waver. I can't control what my employees do on their own time. You sent them.
Can you prove that? Caleb stepped closer. I don't need to prove it. I just need to stop it.
And how do you intend to do that? Name your price. Briggs's eyebrows rose. I'm sorry? The debt, the children, whatever this is really about. Name your price. Briggs studied him for a long moment. Then he laughed. You think this is about money? Isn't it always? Not this time. Briggs moved to his desk, poured himself a drink. Do you know what Daniel Weston did to me? Clara's father? Clara stiffened. My father never... He cheated me. 15 years ago. Before you were born, probably. Briggs took a sip. We were partners in a mining venture. I put up the money, he put up the expertise. When we struck silver, he ran, took everything, left me with nothing but debt and shame. That's a lie, Clara said. Is it? Ask anyone who knew him back then. Your sainted father was a thief, a con man. He destroyed my first marriage, my reputation, my life. Briggs set down his glass. I've been waiting 15 years for revenge, and now I have it. The children had nothing to do with that, Caleb said. They're his blood, close enough. You're punishing innocents for their father's sins. I'm claiming what's owed. Briggs's eyes went cold. Those children will work off their father's debt, every penny. It'll take years, maybe decades, but justice will be served. Clara made a sound like she'd been struck. You're insane, Caleb said. I'm patient. There's a difference. Briggs smiled. You want to protect them? Fine. There's one way. Name it. Marry her. The room went silent. What? Clara's voice was barely a whisper. Marry her, Briggs repeated. Make those children your legal responsibility. Adopt them. Then they're yours to protect, and your debt to pay. I'll pay the debt anyway. You misunderstand. I don't want money. Briggs leaned forward. I want you to choose. Your ranch, your freedom, your comfortable solitary life. Or them. All of them. Forever. Caleb didn't hesitate. Them. Briggs blinked. Whatever he'd expected, it wasn't immediate agreement. You'd give up everything? For 7 orphans and a girl you've known 3 weeks? Without question, Clara grabbed his arm. Caleb, no, you can't. I already decided. He looked at her. Day you showed up on my porch. I just didn't know it yet. How touching. Briggs's voice dripped contempt. But a verbal agreement isn't binding. I want it in writing. Official. Witnessed. Fine. Draw up the papers. Tomorrow. My lawyer will have them ready by noon. Briggs smirked. Assuming you don't change your mind overnight. I won't. We'll see. They left the bank. Clara didn't speak until they were back in the wagon, out of earshot of the town. You shouldn't have done that. Done what? Agreed to marry me, to adopt them. You don't even... We haven't... She stopped, frustrated. You're giving up everything because of my father's sins. I'm gaining everything. Caleb took her hand. Clara, I was dead before you came. Going through the motions, waiting to die for real. You gave me a reason to live. Those children gave me a purpose. That ain't sacrifice. That's salvation. But nothing. I love you. Clara's breath caught. I know I said we should wait. I know it ain't proper. I know you're young, and I'm old, and this whole situation is complicated beyond belief. Caleb squeezed her hand. But I love you, and I'll spend the rest of my life proving it, if you'll let me. Clara was crying, tears streaming down her face, but she was smiling too. You're impossible. Is that a yes? It's a yes, you stubborn, wonderful fool. It's a yes. Josiah cleared his throat from behind them. Not to interrupt, but we got company.
Caleb turned. 4 riders were approaching from the east. Not Briggs's men. These wore badges. "Sheriff," Caleb muttered. "And deputies." They stopped the wagon. The sheriff rode up beside them. "Caleb Thornton," Sheriff Harlan said. "You're under arrest."
For what?
"Cattle theft. Warren Briggs filed a complaint this morning. Says you stole 20 head from his east pasture."
That's a lie.
"Maybe so, but I got 3 witnesses say otherwise." The sheriff's face was hard, but not unkind. "I got to take you in, Caleb. You know how this works." Clara's hand tightened on his arm.
He didn't steal anything. Briggs is lying.
"I believe you, man, but the law's the law. He'll have a trial. A fair one."
Fair?
Clara's voice rose.
In this town? With Briggs owning half the jury?
"Clara." Caleb's voice was calm. "It's all right."
It ain't all right. They're gonna lock you up while Briggs takes the children.
"Josiah will protect you. Won't you, Josiah?" The older man nodded grimly. "With my life."
See, you'll be safe until... I don't care about safe.
Clara grabbed his face, forced him to look at her.
I care about you.
"And I care about doing this right." Caleb covered her hands with his. "If I run, I'm a fugitive. Can't protect you. Can't marry you. Can't adopt the children. But if I face this, prove my innocence, Briggs loses his leverage."
What if you can't prove it? What if the trial goes wrong?
"Then we'll figure something out." He kissed her forehead. "Trust me."
I do. It's them I don't trust.
The sheriff cleared his throat. "We need to go, Caleb." Caleb climbed down from the wagon. Let them put the cuffs on him. Didn't fight, didn't argue. "Josiah," he said, "get her home. Keep the children inside. Don't let anyone in, no matter what they say."
Yes, sir.
"Clara," he looked at her one last time. "I'll come back. I promise."
You better.
They took him away. Clara watched until he disappeared, then turned to Josiah.
Get me to the ranch. Now.
The next 12 hours were the longest of Clara's life. She paced the floor while the children slept, checked the windows, loaded the rifle Caleb had taught her to use, waited for news that didn't come. Around midnight, Josiah touched her shoulder.
You need to rest. I can't. The children need you strong. Caleb needs you strong. I know.
Clara pressed her hands to her face.
I just keep thinking, what if something happens? What if Briggs has him killed in that cell? What if the trial is rigged and they hang him for something he didn't do?
Caleb survived worse than Warren Briggs.
Has he?
Clara looked at Josiah.
Tell me about him. Before Sarah, before Emma. Who was he?
Josiah sat down slowly. He was the best ranger in Texas, he said. Fearless, relentless. Men called him the Ghost because he could track anyone, anywhere, disappear into thin air when he needed to. He brought in outlaws nobody else could touch.
What happened?
The boy, the one he shot. Josiah's voice was heavy. Kid was 15. Had a gun pointed at Caleb's partner. Caleb didn't have a choice. Everyone could see that. But the boy was just a boy. Scared, stupid, in over his head. After that, Caleb couldn't pull the trigger anymore. Couldn't sleep. Started seeing that boy's face everywhere. So he quit. Moved out here. Tried to start over. Then he met Sarah. Josiah smiled faintly. She was the only one who could reach him, make him laugh, make him believe he was still good. When she died, and Emma with her, I thought he'd die too. Part of him did.
And then we showed up.
And then you showed up. Josiah met her eyes. You gave him something to fight for again, Miss Clara. Don't underestimate what that means to a man like him. Clara wiped her eyes.
I just want him back.
You'll have him, one way or another. At dawn, riders approached. Clara grabbed the rifle. Josiah moved to the door. But it wasn't Briggs's men. It was a single rider, a woman on a gray mare.
Who is that?
Clara asked. Josiah squinted. I'll be damned. That's Widow Harriet Dawson. The old woman dismounted with surprising agility for her 75 years.
Clara met her on the porch. Mrs. Dawson, what are you doing here? Helping. The widow's eyes were sharp. Heard what happened. Heard what Briggs did. And I decided I've been silent long enough. I don't understand. Warren Briggs has been running this town for 20 years, bullying people, cheating people, making deals in the dark. Harriet's voice was steel. My husband built this town. He'd be ashamed of what it's become.
What can you do?
I can testify. I know things about Briggs, things he doesn't want anyone to know, things that will destroy him if they come to light. Clara's heart leaped.
You'd do that? For us?
For justice. Harriet took her hands. Your man stood up in church and said what everyone was thinking, but nobody had the courage to say. That kind of bravery deserves support. I should have spoken up then. I'm speaking now. Clara felt tears threatening again.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Don't thank me yet. We've got work to do.
Harriet looked at Josiah. Saddle up. We're going to town.
What about the children? Clara asked. Matthew and Daniel are old enough to watch the little ones. We won't be long. Clara hesitated. Leaving them felt wrong, but staying felt worse. All right, she said. Let's go save Caleb. They rode into town as the sun rose. The streets were already filling. Word had spread about the trial. People gathered outside the courthouse, whispering, pointing. Clara pushed through the crowd, Harriet and Josiah behind her. Inside, the courtroom was packed. Briggs sat in the front row, smiling. Sheriff Harlan stood to one side, uncomfortable. And there, at the defendant's table, sat Caleb. He looked up when she entered. Their eyes met. He nodded once, small and certain. I'm here, she thought. We're going to fix this. The judge called the room to order. This court is now in session. The matter of the territory versus Caleb Thornton on the charge of cattle theft. How does the defendant plead? Caleb stood. Not guilty, Your Honor. Very well. Mr. Briggs, present your evidence. Briggs rose, smooth as a snake. Your Honor, on the night of March 15th, Caleb Thornton was seen near my east pasture by 3 of my ranch hands. The following morning, 20 head of cattle were missing. The tracks led directly to Thornton's ranch.
That's a lie,
Clara called out. The judge's gavel slammed down. Order! Young lady, you will remain silent or be removed. Briggs smiled at her, kept talking. Thornton has been harboring the Weston children, orphans whose father owed me a considerable debt. When I attempted to collect what was owed, he became hostile, threatened me. This theft was retaliation. The judge nodded. Mr. Thornton, your defense. Caleb stood. I was home that night. All night. Miss Weston can verify that. Miss Weston is hardly an unbiased witness. Then call my ranch hand, Josiah Moore. He'll tell you the same. A Negro's testimony against 3 white men? Briggs laughed. Your Honor, this is absurd. Clara's blood boiled. She started to rise, but Harriet's hand on her arm stopped her. Wait, the widow whispered. Let them finish. The trial continued. Witness after witness, all Briggs's men, testified that they'd seen Caleb near the pasture, that the tracks were clear, that Thornton was guilty. With each testimony, Clara's hope faded. Then Harriet stood. "Your Honor, I'd like to speak." The room went silent. Even Briggs looked surprised. "Mrs. Dawson," the judge's voice was respectful. "You have something to add?" "I do." Harriet walked to the front of the room. 23 years ago, my husband and Warren Briggs went into business together. A mining venture. Warren stole everything. The silver, the profits, the deeds. Left my husband ruined. It killed him. Briggs's face went white. "Your Honor, this is irrelevant." "Is it?" Harriet turned to face him.
You've been stealing from this town for 20 years, Warren. Cheating on contracts, bribing officials, threatening anyone who stood in your way. I have proof, documents, witnesses, everything I need to destroy you.
"This is slander."
It's truth. And if this court convicts Caleb Thornton on your false testimony, I will bring that proof to the territorial marshal. Every dirty deal, every bribe, every life you've ruined.
Harriet's voice rang through the courtroom.
Your choice, Warren. Drop the charges or lose everything.
The room erupted. The judge slammed his gavel. Briggs was shouting. Clara was on her feet. And through it all, Caleb sat perfectly still, watching Harriet Dawson tear his enemy apart. The charges were dropped by noon. Caleb walked out of the courthouse, a free man. Clara threw herself into his arms.
You're okay, she breathed. You're okay.
Thanks to you.
Thanks to Mrs. Dawson.
Harriet appeared beside them, looking satisfied.
That felt good, the old woman said. Should have done it years ago.
Why didn't you? Caleb asked.
Fear, complacency. The same things that stop everyone, Harriet shrugged. But watching you stand up in church, watching Clara fight for her family, reminded me what courage looks like. I'd forgotten.
Clara hugged her.
Thank you for everything. Just take care of those children. That's all the thanks I need.
They rode home together, Caleb and Clara side by side on the wagon, Josiah and Harriet behind them. The children were waiting on the porch, faces pressed to the windows. When they saw Caleb, they came pouring out like water from a dam. Sammy reached him first, grabbing his legs.
Mr. Caleb, you came back!
I promised, didn't I? Ruth was crying. Matthew was trying not to. Even Daniel looked relieved. And Clara stood in the middle of it all, watching her family embrace the man she loved. This is real, she thought. This is home.
Caleb met her eyes over the children's heads.
We still getting married? He asked. You still want to? More than anything, Clara smiled through her tears. Then yes, 1,000 times yes. The victory didn't last long. 3 days after the trial, Caleb woke to smoke. He threw off the covers and ran outside. The barn was burning. Flames licked up the walls, reaching for the night sky like desperate hands. Josiah, Caleb shouted. The horses! They worked together, kicking open stalls, dragging terrified animals into the yard. The heat was unbearable. The smoke choked them. But they got them all out. Every horse, every cow, every living thing. The barn collapsed just as Clara reached them. The children huddled behind her. Is everyone okay? She gasped. We're fine. Caleb's face was black with soot. The animals are safe. Who did this? Caleb stared at the flames. He didn't need to answer. They both knew. Briggs. I thought it was over, Clara whispered.
I thought we won. Men like Briggs don't accept losing. They burn everything down before they walk away.
What do we do? Caleb turned to her. His eyes were hard as flint. We end this. Tonight. He rode into town alone. Clara had begged to come.
Josiah had argued. Even Matthew had offered to ride with him. But Caleb refused. "This is between me and Briggs. No one else gets hurt." He found Briggs at the saloon. The banker sat at his usual table, surrounded by hired men, drinking like a man with nothing to fear. Caleb walked through the door. Every head turned. "Thornton," Briggs smiled. "Come to surrender?" "Come to finish this." "Big words for a man without a barn." "I don't need a barn. I need you to understand something." Caleb stopped at Briggs's table. "You burned my property. You threatened my family. You tried to destroy everything I care about. And I'll keep trying until those children are mine. They'll never be yours. We'll see about that."
Caleb leaned close. His voice dropped low enough that only Briggs could hear. "I was a Texas Ranger for 8 years. I've killed men for less than what you've done. I've tracked outlaws through desert and mountain. I've done things that would give you nightmares." He paused. "If you touch my family again, if you even look at them wrong, I will find you, and I will end you. Not through the law, not through witnesses, just me and you and the darkness. Do you understand?" Briggs's face had gone pale. The hired men shifted nervously. "You're threatening me." "I'm making a promise." Caleb straightened. "Leave us alone. Walk away. Find some other grudge to nurse. Or face the consequences." "You wouldn't dare. Try me." They stared at each other. Caleb didn't blink, didn't waver. Let Briggs see everything he was, every kill, every hunt, every dark moment of his ranger years. Briggs looked away first. "Get out," the banker muttered. "Get out of my sight." Caleb nodded and walked out. Behind him, he heard Briggs's men muttering, heard the crack in their employer's authority. It wasn't over, not completely, but the balance had shifted. He rode home with the sun rising behind him. Clara was waiting on the porch. When she saw him, she ran to meet him.
What happened? Are you hurt?
"I'm fine."
Did you?
"I didn't kill him." Caleb dismounted, pulled her close. "But I think he got the message."
You think?
"I know." He kissed her forehead. "He won't bother us again."
How can you be sure?
Because I saw fear in his eyes. Real fear. And men like Briggs, they're bullies. They only fight when they think they'll win. Caleb looked toward the burned remains of the barn. He lost. He knows it. Now he's just looking for a way to save face. Clara leaned into him.
I was so scared when you left.
"I know. I'm sorry."
Don't be sorry. Just don't do it again.
"Can't promise that."
I know.
She looked up at him.
That's what scares me. The next week passed in a blur of rebuilding. Neighbors came to help, real neighbors, not the ones who'd whispered and judged. Harriet Dawson organized work crews. The sheriff himself showed up with lumber, looking sheepish but determined to make amends. "Figured I owed you," Tom Harlan said, handing Caleb a hammer, "for going along with Briggs's lies. You were doing your job." "I was being a coward. There's a difference." The sheriff paused. "It won't happen again." Caleb nodded. "Then we're square." By week's end, the frame of a new barn stood in the yard. Smaller than the old one, but sturdy, built by hands that wanted to help. Clara watched from the porch, Grace in her arms.
I never thought they'd come, she said to Josiah. After everything, the church, the trial, I figured they'd hate us forever.
"People surprise you sometimes," Josiah smiled, "especially when someone shows them a better way."
Caleb showed them.
So did you. That night, after the workers left and the children were in bed,
Caleb found Clara in the kitchen. She was staring at a piece of paper, tears streaming down her face. "What's wrong?" He crossed to her immediately. "What happened?" Clara held up the paper. Her hands were shaking. "Briggs dropped the debt." "What?" "This came by messenger an hour ago. He's forgiven the whole thing. Papa's debt, the interest, all of it. Gone." Caleb took the paper, read it twice to make sure. "Why would he do this?" "I don't know." Clara wiped her eyes. "Does it matter?" "It might be a trick." "His lawyer signed it. It's legal. Binding." Clara looked at him. "We're free, Caleb. Really free." Caleb set down the paper and pulled her into his arms. "We were always free, from the moment you walked onto my porch." Clara laughed through her tears. "You didn't think so then?" "I didn't know a lot of things then." He cupped her face in his hands. "I didn't know I could feel again. Didn't know I could love again. Didn't know that 7 children and 1 stubborn girl could save my life."
"I ain't a girl. I'm a woman."
"You certainly are." He kissed her, soft at first, then deeper. Clara's arms wrapped around his neck. For a long moment, the world disappeared. Then Sammy's voice echoed from the hallway.
"Sissy, I had a bad dream."
Clara pulled back, laughing. "Duty calls." "Always does." Caleb released her, reluctantly. "Go, I'll be here." She went to comfort Sammy, and Caleb stood alone in the kitchen, holding the paper that said they were free. For the first time in years, he believed it. The wedding was set for Sunday. Harriet insisted on hosting it at her home, the largest in town, with a garden that could hold half the county. Clara protested, but the old woman wouldn't hear it.
"You saved this town's conscience," Harriet said. "Let us thank you properly. We didn't save nothing. We just survived."
Sometimes surviving is the bravest thing you can do. The children were beside themselves with excitement. Ruth appointed herself in charge of flowers. Hope wanted to carry Grace down the aisle. Matthew and Daniel argued about who would stand with Caleb. "You both will," Caleb told them. "All of you. This ain't just my wedding. It's our family becoming official." Thomas tugged at his sleeve. "Does that mean you're our pa now?" Caleb knelt to look the boy in the eye. "If you want me to be."
"I do."
Thomas's voice was small, but certain.
"Papa Weston was sick a lot. He tried, but he couldn't. He wasn't."
"I know."
"You're different. You make Clara smile. You keep us safe."
Thomas paused.
"I want you to be my pa."
Caleb's throat tightened. "Then I will be, from this day on." Thomas hugged him hard. Caleb held on, feeling something break open inside him. The last wall, the final resistance. He was going to be a father again. And this time, he wouldn't fail. The morning of the wedding, Clara woke before dawn. She lay in bed, listening to the children breathe in the next room. Grace made soft sounds in her cradle. Outside, birds were starting to sing. In a few hours, she would be Clara Thornton. The thought made her dizzy. Happy and terrified and overwhelmed all at once. A knock on her door. "Come in." Josiah entered, carrying a wooden box. "Found this in Caleb's things," he said. "He wanted you to have it. For today." Clara opened the box. Inside lay a string of pearls, yellowed with age, but still beautiful.
"These were Sarah's," she whispered. "Her mother's before that. 4 generations of Thornton women."
Josiah's voice was gentle. "He wants you to be the 5th. Clara touched the pearls with trembling fingers.
"I can't wear these. They're too precious."
"That's exactly why he wants you to wear them. You're precious to him, Miss Clara. More than you know." Clara closed the box and pressed it to her heart. "Thank you, Josiah, for everything you've done for us." "You don't need to thank me." "I do. You could have walked away when things got hard, when Briggs was threatening us, but you stayed." I stayed because Caleb's my family. And now you are, too. Josiah smiled. That's what family does. They stay. The church was full. Clara stood at the entrance, bouquet clutched in white-knuckled hands. Harriet fussed with her veil. The children lined up behind her, scrubbed clean and nervous. "Ready?" Harriet asked.
No. Good. That means it's real.
The doors opened. Clara walked down the aisle on legs that shook. She saw faces, some friendly, some still uncertain. She saw Sheriff Harlan looking uncomfortable in the front pew. She saw neighbors who'd helped rebuild the barn, townspeople who'd judged her and then changed their minds. But mostly, she saw Caleb. He stood at the altar in his best clothes, looking more terrified than she'd ever seen him. But when their eyes met, his face transformed. The fear melted away, replaced by something that made Clara's heart stop. Love. Pure and simple and certain. She reached the altar, took his hands.
Hi,
she whispered.
Hi yourself. You look scared.
Terrified. You?
Same.
He squeezed her hands. Then we'll be terrified together. Preacher Stone, looking chastened and humble after Briggs's public fall, cleared his throat. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to witness the union of Caleb Thornton and Clara Weston in holy matrimony. Clara barely heard the words. She was lost in Caleb's eyes, in the warmth of his hands, in the impossible reality of this moment. 3 weeks ago, she'd knocked on a stranger's door, begging for a place to sleep. Now she was marrying him. Do you, Caleb Thornton, take Clara Weston to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. His voice was steady, certain. Do you, Clara Weston, take Caleb Thornton to be your lawfully wedded husband?
I do.
Her voice cracked, but she didn't care. Then by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you man and wife. The preacher smiled. You may kiss the bride. Caleb pulled her close. The kiss was soft and sweet, and felt like coming home. Behind them, Sammy cheered. Grace started crying. Ruth was already weeping. Matthew and Daniel looked embarrassed, but pleased. They were a family now. Official. Forever. The reception at Harriet's was chaos in the best possible way. Children ran everywhere. Food covered every surface. Music played from somewhere, and people danced, awkwardly, joyfully, like they'd forgotten they knew how. Caleb pulled Clara away from the crowd, to a quiet corner of the garden. I have something for you.
The pearls were enough.
This is different. He pulled a folded paper from his pocket. The adoption papers, signed and witnessed. As of today, all 7 of them are legally mine. Ours. Clara unfolded the paper with trembling hands. There it was, in black and white. Matthew, Daniel, Ruth, Thomas, Sammy, Hope, and Grace Thornton.
You did this already?
First thing this morning, before you woke up.
Why didn't you tell me?
Wanted to surprise you, Caleb smiled.
Surprised?
Clara threw her arms around him.
You're the best man I've ever known.
I'm the luckiest man alive.
Both can be true.
They stood there, holding each other, while the party continued around them. For a moment, nothing else existed. No past, no future. Just this perfect now. Then Matthew appeared at Caleb's elbow. Sir? Pa? The boy was still getting used to the word.
Someone's here to see you.
Caleb tensed. Who?
Sheriff Harlan. Says it's urgent.
They found the sheriff in the front parlor, hat in hands, looking grim. Sorry to interrupt, Harlan said, but I thought you should know. Know what? Warren Briggs is dead. The room went silent. "What happened?" Caleb asked. "Shot himself. About an hour ago. His housekeeper found him." The sheriff paused. "He left a note. Confessed to everything. The false charges against you, the cattle theft, the barn fire, the years of cheating and bribing. Said he couldn't live with the shame." Clara grabbed Caleb's arm.
It's really over?
"It's really over. His estate will pay restitution to everyone he wronged. And those children," the sheriff looked at Clara, "they're safe now. No one's coming for them. Ever." Caleb let out a breath he felt like he'd been holding for weeks. "Thank you, Tom, for telling us." "It's the least I could do." The sheriff put on his hat. "I'll leave you to your celebration. God knows you've earned it." After he left, Clara turned to Caleb.
I don't know how to feel.
"You don't have to know. Not yet."
He was a monster. He tried to destroy us. But still,
"I know." Caleb pulled her close. "Some part of you feels sorry for him. That's because you're good, Clara. Better than he ever was."
or maybe I just don't know how to hate.
"Maybe. Either way, it's over. He can't hurt us anymore." Clara nodded slowly. Then she looked up at him with determination in her eyes.
I want to go home.
"The party's not over."
I don't care about the party. I care about our family, our home.
She took his hand.
Take me home, Caleb.
They gathered the children, full of cake and tired from excitement, and loaded into the wagon. Harriet kissed Clara's cheek. Josiah drove. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Sammy fell asleep against Ruth's shoulder. Grace was already out in Clara's arms. The older children sat quietly, worn out but content.
Pa,
Thomas's voice was drowsy.
Are we really a family now?
We really are.
Forever?
Forever. Thomas smiled and closed his eyes. Caleb looked at Clara. She was watching the children, her face soft in the fading light. "What are you thinking?" he asked.
That I never thought I'd have this. Any of this.
She met his eyes. A husband who loves me, a home that's safe, a future that's more than just survival. You've got it now. I know. That's what scares me. Why? Because everything good I've ever had has been taken away. Mama, Papa, our home. Every time I thought we were safe, something went wrong. Clara's voice trembled. What if this gets taken away too? Caleb reached over and took her hand. It won't. You can't promise that. I can promise I'll fight for it. Every day, whatever comes. He squeezed her hand. You ain't alone anymore, Clara. Whatever happens, we face it together. She leaned her head against his shoulder. Together, she whispered. They reached the ranch as darkness fell. The new barn stood proud against the night sky. The house glowed with lamplight that Josiah had left burning. Home. Caleb carried Sammy inside. Clara followed with Grace. One by one, they put the children to bed, kisses and whispered goodnights and promises of tomorrow. When they finally stood alone in the hallway, Caleb looked at Clara. Mrs. Thornton. Mr. Thornton. Got a nice ring to it.
It does.
She took his hand. Walk with me? They went to the porch, their place, and stood together looking at the stars. I used to think my life was over, Caleb said quietly. After Sarah, after Emma, I figured I'd just exist until I died. Nothing more. And now? Now I know different. Now I know that endings ain't always endings. Sometimes they're just the start of something new. Clara turned to face him.
I love you, Caleb Thornton.
I love you, Clara Thornton. She smiled, that smile that had saved him, that had given him a reason to keep breathing.
Take me inside, she said. Take me home.
He did.
And somewhere in the darkness, 7 children slept peacefully, safe in the knowledge that they were loved, protected, and finally, irrevocably, home. The long night was over.
Lưu ý, viết 3.500 đến 4.000 từ liên kết liền mạch với các phần trước trong câu chuyện. Pha hội thoại tạo thành một câu chuyện liền mạch khi ghép lại. Mỗi phần liền mạch với phần trước không giới thiệu lại câu chuyện ở đầu phần mới. Liên kết các phần của câu chuyện một cách liền mạch. Sử dụng câu chuyện tiếp giữa các phần. Duy trì chủ đề, tránh ngắt quãng đột ngột, không sử dụng gạch đầu dòng hoặc tiêu đề phụ. Phong cách kể chuyện Mỹ, Hoa Kỳ. Giọng văn giàu cảm xúc, chân thực và gần gũi. Không mô tả cảnh, tập trung vào hành động, cảm xúc và tâm lý nhân vật. Viết phần 5 đạt điểm 10 trên 10 và bổ sung tiết tấu câu chuyện. Nhanh. Sửa lỗi AI. Kể theo ngôi thứ 3. Giữ độ kịch tính. Không viết lan man. Kết thúc dùng câu khẳng định mạnh để khép lại câu chuyện rõ ràng, trọn vẹn.
Lưu ý trả lời trong mục tin nhắn, không nhảy sang mục document. Mỗi 2 đến 3 phút cần có mini climax và đạt 10 đến 15 mini climax mỗi phần. Cứ 10 đến 12 phút có một twist lớn, sâu sắc, đan xen mini cliffhanger mạnh hơn. Tăng tính tự nhiên cho phản ứng của các nhân vật, thêm nhịp điệu kịch tính, thực tế và gần gũi. Mỗi 8 đến 10 phút cần có móc giữ chân khán giả. Lưu ý, không mô tả cảnh và chỉ cần viết nội dung và viết đúng lệnh nhé.
Show more 1529. Orchestrated final story chapter with emotional depth, pacing, and narrative twists. The user wants me to write part 5 of the story, the final part, breakthrough/bứt phá.
This needs to be 3,500 to 4,000 words, seamlessly connected to the previous parts. With strong emotional storytelling in American style. No scene descriptions. Focus on emotional actions and character psychology. Third-person narration. 10 to 15 mini climaxes every 2 to 3 minutes. One major twist every 10 to 12 minutes. Mini cliffhangers. Natural character reactions. Dramatic pacing. Audience retention hooks every 8 to 10 minutes. Strong concluding statement to wrap up the story completely. No AI writing patterns. No bullet points or subheadings. Written entirely in English. This is the final part, so it needs to 1. Show the family settling into their new life. 2. Address any remaining emotional threads. 3. Show character growth and transformation. 4. Provide a satisfying emotional conclusion. 5. End with a powerful, affirming statement. Let me write part 5 with all these elements, maintaining the Western romance style, the emotional depth, and ensuring it flows seamlessly from part 4. 3 months passed like water through open fingers. Spring turned to summer. The ranch bloomed with new life, calves in the pasture, chickens in the yard, vegetables pushing through the garden soil Clara had planted with the children. But the biggest change was inside the house. Laughter. Everyday laughter. Caleb still wasn't used to it. Sometimes he'd stop in the middle of a chore just to listen. Sammy chasing Thomas through the rooms. Ruth singing while she helped Josiah cook. Grace babbling in her cradle, reaching for anyone who passed. This was what a home sounded like. He'd forgotten. One morning, Clara found him standing in the doorway of the kitchen, just watching. "You're doing it again," she said. Doing what? That thing where you look at us like we might disappear.
Caleb smiled. Old habit. Bad habit. Clara crossed to him, wrapped her arms around his waist.
We ain't going nowhere, Caleb Thornton. Get used to it.
I'm trying.
Try harder. He kissed her forehead.
Yes, ma'am. From the table, Matthew made a gagging sound. Can you two not do that while we're eating? Our house, Caleb said. Our rules. Gross. But Matthew was smiling. They all were. That afternoon, Harriet Dawson came calling. She rode up the lane in her buggy, looking pleased with herself. Clara met her on the porch. Mrs. Dawson, we weren't expecting you. I know. That's the point of surprises. Harriet climbed down with surprising agility. Where's that husband of yours? In the barn? Is something wrong? Something's right, for once. Fetch him. Clara sent Thomas running. Caleb appeared minutes later, wiping his hands on his pants. Mrs. Dawson. Mr. Thornton. I have news. She pulled a letter from her bag and handed it to Caleb. He read it once, then again. His face went pale. What is it? Clara asked. Caleb, what does it say? He looked at her. His eyes were wet. It's from the territorial governor. Briggs's estate, after paying restitution to everyone he wronged, still had a surplus. The governor decided to distribute it to the families most affected. Caleb's voice shook. Clara, they gave us the deed to the old mill, the one by the river, plus 200 acres of grazing land. Clara grabbed the letter, read it herself. This can't be real. It's real. Harriet was beaming. I made sure of it. Pulled every string I had. After what that man put you through, it seemed only fair. Mrs. Dawson, don't thank me. Just build something good on that land. Harriet's voice softened. My husband always said that the best revenge against evil was living well. Prove him right. That night, Caleb and Clara walked to the hill overlooking the new land. They stood together, watching the sun set over property that was theirs. Really theirs. I never owned anything before, Clara said quietly. Not really. Everything was Papa's, and then it was gone. Now it's ours. Yours and mine and the children's. What are we going to do with the mill? Whatever we want. Caleb put his arm around her. Ruth wants to open a school. Maybe we could use part of it for that. Matthew's been talking about learning to work metal. The forge could be his someday. You've been thinking about this. I've been thinking about everything. He turned to face her. 3 months ago, I was waiting to die. Now I've got more future than I know what to do with. Clara reached up and touched his face. Scared? Terrified. Me too, she smiled. But the good kind of terrified. There's a good kind? The kind where you're scared because you have something worth losing. Clara leaned into him. I spent my whole life with nothing. Now I have everything. That's terrifying. Then we'll be terrified together. Deal. They walked home hand in hand, the stars coming out above them, like promises. Summer brought changes to the children, too. Ellie spoke her first words since arriving. It happened at dinner, without warning. Caleb had been telling a story about his ranger days, cleaned up for young ears, when Ellie tugged at his sleeve. Papa Caleb? The table went silent. Clara's fork clattered against her plate. Yeah, sweetheart? Did you really chase a man for 100 miles? Caleb's throat closed up. He couldn't speak, couldn't move. Clara reached under the table and squeezed his hand. I did, he managed. But he was a very bad man, and I was younger then. Were you scared? Sometimes, but being scared don't mean you stop. It just means what you're doing matters. Ellie nodded solemnly. Then she went back to eating, like she hadn't just spoken for the first time in months. Clara was crying. Ruth was crying. Even Matthew's eyes looked suspiciously wet. "Well," Josiah said from his chair by the stove, "reckon miracles still happen." They did. Daniel started calling Caleb Pa without being prompted. First accidentally, then deliberately, then like it was the most natural thing in the world. Ruth began teaching the younger children their letters, using the same patient methods Clara had taught her. She had a gift for it, a way of making learning feel like play. Thomas became Caleb's shadow on the ranch, asking endless questions, soaking up knowledge like dry ground drinks rain. And Sammy just loved everyone, fiercely, loudly, without reservation. He'd climb into Caleb's lap every evening and demand stories until he fell asleep. "He's attached," Clara said one night, watching Caleb carry the sleeping boy to bed. "That a problem?" "No, it's a miracle." Clara touched Sammy's hair as Caleb laid him down. "He didn't talk for 3 months after Mama died. Wouldn't let anyone hold him. Now look at him." "Kids are resilient." "Kids need love. There's a difference." Clara looked at Caleb. "You gave him that. You gave all of them that." "We did. Together." "Together," Clara agreed. Late summer brought visitors. A man rode up one afternoon while Caleb was mending fences. Clara watched from the porch, hand resting on the rifle by the door. The rider stopped at the fence line. He was younger than Caleb, wearing a badge. "Caleb Thornton?" "Who's asking?" "Name's Jake Morrison, Texas Rangers." Caleb set down his tools and walked toward the fence. "Long way from Texas." "Came looking for you specifically." Morrison dismounted. "Your old captain sent me. Captain Hendricks?" "I remember him." "He's retiring. Wants to see you before he goes." Morrison paused. "Said you were the best ranger he ever trained. Said if anyone could convince you to come back, it'd be him." Clara's hand tightened on the rifle. "Come back?" Caleb looked at the young ranger, then at the house behind him, at Clara on the porch, at the children's faces pressed against the windows. "Tell Hendricks I'm honored. But I got a family now, a life. I ain't the man I was." "He said you'd say that." "Then he knows me well." Morrison nodded slowly. "Fair enough. But if you ever change your mind—" "I won't." "The badge is always here for you." Caleb shook his hand. "Give Hendricks my regards. Tell him I finally found what I was looking for." "What's that?" "Peace." Morrison rode away. Caleb walked back to the house, where Clara was waiting. "You could have gone," she said quietly, "if that's what you wanted." "What I want is right here." Caleb took her hands. "I spent 8 years chasing outlaws, trying to outrun my demons. Didn't work. But this," he gestured at the ranch, at the children, at her. "This is where I belong. This is who I am now." "You sure?" "Never been more sure of anything." Clara pulled him into a kiss. When they broke apart, Sammy's voice came from inside. "Ew! They're kissing again!" Caleb laughed. Actually laughed. "That boy's got timing." "He learned it from you." They walked inside together, leaving the past behind. Fall arrived with golden leaves and cooler nights. Clara woke one morning feeling strange. Not sick exactly, just different. She said nothing to Caleb. Not yet. Not until she was sure. A week later, she was sure. She found him in the new barn, brushing down the horses. Watched him for a moment, this man who'd saved her family, who'd given them everything. "Caleb?" He turned. "Hey, everything all right?" "Everything's perfect." She walked toward him slowly. "I have something to tell you." "What is it?" Clara took his hand and placed it on her belly. "We're having a baby." Caleb's hand went rigid. His face went white.
You're pregnant. About 2 months along, I reckon.
A baby. Our baby. Caleb's legs gave out. He sat down hard on a hay bale, staring at nothing. Caleb? Clara knelt in front of him. Say something. I'm gonna be a father. You're already a father, 7 times over. But this is... His voice cracked. Clara, after Emma, I never thought I know. I was so scared. Scared of loving another child. Scared of losing them. I know. Caleb looked at her. Tears were streaming down his face. Thank you. For what? For giving me a second chance. At everything. Clara climbed into his lap, wrapped her arms around him. You gave me the same thing. Seems only fair. They held each other in the barn, surrounded by the smell of hay and horses, while a new life grew between them. That night, they told the children. The announcement came at dinner. Caleb stood, Clara beside him, both of them nervous as cats. We have news, Caleb said.
7 faces looked up, waiting.
Your mother, he still stumbled over the word sometimes. Clara is going to have a baby. Silence. Then Ruth shrieked. A baby? A real baby? We already have a baby, Thomas said, pointing at Grace. She's right there. Another baby, dummy, Matthew said, but he was grinning. Daniel's face was harder to read. So there'll be 8 of us now? 9, Clara corrected gently. 8 children and 2 parents. That's a lot. It is. You worried? Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then he shook his head. No, just... things keep getting better. I keep waiting for it to stop. Caleb understood that. Understood the fear of happiness, the certainty that good things couldn't last. It won't stop, he said. Not as long as we're together. Daniel met his eyes, saw something there. Truth, maybe. Promise. Okay, the boy said. Okay, Pa. Sammy climbed down from his chair and ran to Clara. Can I name it? Please, I want to name it.
What would you name it? Horse. We ain't naming the baby Horse, Matthew said. Why not? Horses are great. The argument that followed was loud, chaotic, and absolutely perfect. Clara caught Caleb's eye across the table. Both of them were smiling. This was family. This was home. Winter came early that year. The first snow fell in October, soft and silent. By November, the drifts were knee-deep. Clara grew rounder. The children grew taller. The ranch grew stronger. On the anniversary of the night Clara first knocked on Caleb's door, they stood together on the porch, watching the snow fall. 1 year, Clara said. Hard to believe. Feels longer. Feels like forever. She leaned against him. In a good way. You cold? Always, she smiled. But you keep me warm. Caleb wrapped his arms around her, resting his hands on her belly. The baby kicked against his palms. Strong one, he said, like his father. Could be a girl. Could be. Either way, they'll be loved. They will, more than they'll ever know. The door opened behind them. Josiah's head appeared. You two gonna freeze out here, or you gonna come in for supper? Coming, Caleb said. They went inside, where warmth and noise and family waited. The baby came in February. Clara's labor started at midnight. By dawn, she was exhausted, drenched in sweat, gripping Caleb's hand hard enough to break bones. I can't, she gasped. I can't do this. You can. You're the strongest person I know. I'm not. You walked 8 miles through a blizzard with 7 children.
You faced down Warren Briggs. You survived everything life threw at you." Caleb cupped her face. "You can do this, Clara. I believe in you." She screamed, pushed, screamed again, and then a cry. Thin and reedy and absolutely perfect. "It's a boy," the midwife announced. "A healthy boy." Clara collapsed against the pillows, sobbing with relief. Caleb cut the cord with shaking hands.
The midwife placed the baby in Clara's arms. He was small, red-faced, furious at the world. He was beautiful.
"Hello,"
Clara whispered.
"Hello, little one."
Caleb sat beside her, one arm around his wife, eyes fixed on his son.
"He needs a name," Clara said. "I was thinking, Samuel, after your brother."
Clara looked at him, eyes swimming. "Really?"
"Sammy's been asking if the baby could have his name. I figured—"
"It's perfect." Clara kissed the baby's forehead.
"Samuel Thornton. Sammy would love that."
"Can I see?" They looked up. 7 faces crowded the doorway. Josiah was trying to hold them back, but it was a losing battle. "Come in," Caleb said. "Come meet your brother." They flooded the room. Sammy climbed onto the bed, peering at the baby with wide eyes.
"He's so small."
"You were this small once."
"No way."
"Way." Ruth was crying. Matthew was trying not to. Daniel hung back, watching with that guarded expression he wore when emotions got too big.
"Daniel."
Clara held out her hand.
"Come here."
He approached slowly. Clara placed his hand on the baby's head. "You're the oldest now," she said. "I need you to help protect him, like you protected all of us." Daniel's throat worked. "I will, I promise. I know you will." The baby, Samuel, waved his tiny fist and made a sound like an angry kitten. "He's loud," Thomas observed. "He's a Thornton," Caleb said. "We're all loud." "That's true," Josiah said from the doorway. "Loudest family I ever worked for." Everyone laughed, even Daniel. And in that moment, surrounded by his family, holding his newborn son, Caleb felt something he thought he'd never feel again. Complete. Spring returned to Wyoming. The snow melted, the rivers ran high, the land turned green with new growth. On the first warm day of April, Caleb took the whole family to the cemetery. They stood before 3 graves: Sarah Thornton, Emma Thornton, and a third, newer marker, Daniel Weston Sr.
I moved here at Clara's request.
"Why are we here?" Sammy asked. "To remember," Caleb said, "and to introduce someone." He knelt before Sarah and Emma's graves, baby Samuel in his arms. "Sarah, Emma." His voice was thick. "This is Samuel. I don't know what he is to you, but he's part of this family, and you're still part of this family. Always will be." Clara knelt beside him, taking his hand. "They'd be proud of you," she said softly. "You think so?" "I know so. You didn't let grief destroy you. You built something new, something beautiful." She looked at the graves. "That's all any of us can do. Honor the dead by living well." Caleb touched Sarah's headstone, touched Emma's. "I'll never forget you," he whispered. "But I'm not going to stop living. Not anymore." He felt it then, a lifting, a release, the chains of guilt and grief that had bound him for years finally breaking free. "Goodbye," he said, "until we meet again." They walked home together, all of them, 8 children and 2 parents, and 1 old man who was more family than anything. The ranch spread out before them, solid and real. "Pa?" Daniel walked beside Caleb, matching his stride.
Can I ask you something?
Anything.
Do you ever regret it, taking us in? All the trouble we caused?
Caleb stopped, looked at the boy, the young man, who'd become his son. Daniel, that night when your sister knocked on my door, I was dead inside. Had been, for 2 years. I'd given up on life, on love, on everything that mattered. He put his hand on Daniel's shoulder. You all saved me. Every single one of you. How could I regret that? Daniel's eyes were bright.
I just wanted to make sure.
I'm sure. More sure than I've ever been about anything. Caleb squeezed his shoulder. You're my son. All of you are my children. And I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you know how much you're loved. Daniel hugged him, fierce and fast, the way young men do when emotion overwhelms them.
Thanks, Pa. Anytime, son. Anytime.
That evening, they sat on the porch together, the whole family, spread across chairs and steps and laps. Josiah smoked his pipe. The children played quietly. Baby Samuel slept in Clara's arms. Caleb looked at them all, his family, his home, his life. Happy? Clara asked softly. Terrified. The good kind? The best kind. She leaned her head against his shoulder. Me too. The sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. The first stars appeared, bright and steady.
Tell us a story, Papa Caleb,
Ellie said from her spot at his feet. What kind of story?
A good one, with a happy ending.
Caleb smiled, looked at Clara, at the children, at the life they'd built from nothing but courage and love. Once upon a time, he began, there was a man who thought his life was over. He'd lost everything. His wife, his daughter, his reason for living. He shut himself away from the world, waiting to die. Then, one cold night, someone knocked on his door. A girl with 7 children asking for shelter. The man didn't want to let them in, didn't want to care again, didn't want to risk his heart. But he did. He opened his door, and in doing so, he opened his heart. The road wasn't easy. There were enemies to face, battles to fight, wounds to heal. But the man and the girl faced it all together. They built a family. They built a home. They built a life worth living. And in the end, the man realized something. The girl and her children hadn't just found shelter in his home. They'd found a home in his heart. And he'd found one in theirs. Caleb paused. The children were listening, rapt.
What happened then?
Sammy asked. Then they lived, really lived, through good times and bad, through joy and sorrow, through everything life threw at them. Caleb pulled Clara closer. Because they were together, because they were family, because love, real love, doesn't run from hard things.
It runs toward them.
Is that the end?
Ruth asked.
No,
Caleb smiled.
that's just the beginning.
The stars came out, one by one, as the family sat together in the gathering darkness. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new joys, new chapters yet to be written. But tonight, they were together. They were home. They were loved. And that was enough. That would always be enough. She asked if they could sleep in his barn. He opened his home, and in doing so, he opened his heart. To 7 children who needed a father, to a woman who became his whole world, and to a future brighter than anything he dared to dream. Some doors, once opened, change everything. This one did.